Hello everyone, welcome to ThinkBox. In today's video, we are going to talk about how one man's death started World War I. We'll break it down step by step, from the assassination to the global war. And by the end, you'll see why this event still matters today. Sometimes, history doesn't change because of wars, kings, or empires. Sometimes it changes because one car took a wrong turn, and because one teenager was standing at the right place at the worst moment in human history. This is the story of how the death of one man quietly pulled the trigger on a war that killed over 20 million people. June 28, 1914. A warm summer morning in a small European city called Sarajevo. The streets are decorated. People are cheering. A royal motorcade is passing through the city. Inside one of the cars is a man most people today have never heard of, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He is the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, one of the most powerful political positions on earth. But on this day, he is not dressed like a king. No bulletproof car, no heavy security, just an open-top vehicle, moving slowly through narrow streets. What the crowd didn't know was that 7 young men were hiding along the road. They were not soldiers, not professionals, just teenagers and young adults, armed with pistols, bombs, and one impossible mission: kill the future emperor of Europe. Their names would disappear from memory, but one name would change history forever: Gavrilo Princip. He was 19 years old, underweight, poor, sick with tuberculosis, and convinced that killing one man could free millions. As the royal car moves, one assassin throws a bomb. It misses. It explodes under the wrong car, wounds several officers. The Archduke survives. The attackers panic. Some run, some hide. The royal convoy speeds up. The danger seems over. History should have ended here. It didn't. After the failed attack, Franz Ferdinand decides to visit the injured officers at the hospital. But nobody updates the driver about the new route. At one small street corner, the driver makes a wrong turn. The car slows down to reverse. And standing just 2 meters away, buying a sandwich, is Gavrilo Princip. He couldn't believe his eyes. The target had come to him. Princip steps forward, pulls out his pistol, fires 2 shots. One bullet hits the Archduke in the neck. The other hits his wife Sophie in the stomach. She dies first. Franz Ferdinand whispers, "Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." Minutes later, he is dead too. No armies moved that day. No borders changed. No one declared war. Just 2 bodies, on a quiet street. And yet, within 5 weeks, the entire world would be burning. But here's the real question. How did the death of one man create the deadliest war humanity had ever seen? To understand that, we need to understand the boy who pulled the trigger. Gavrilo Princip was not a monster. He was not rich, powerful, or famous. He was just a teenager who believed he was saving his people. And that belief is more dangerous than any weapon. Princip was born in a small village in Bosnia. His family was poor, so poor that sometimes they couldn't afford shoes. His father was a failed farmer. His mother was constantly ill. From childhood, Princip learned one thing: life is unfair, and someone is responsible. That someone became the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Bosnia was under Austro-Hungarian rule. Foreign soldiers, foreign laws, foreign language. To Princip and many young Bosnians, it felt like, we are living in our own land, but we don't own it. Nationalism was rising everywhere in Europe. People wanted identity, flags, borders, freedom. Princip didn't just want freedom. He wanted revenge. In school, Princip met other angry young men. They formed secret groups. One of them was called Young Bosnia, later connected to a Serbian organization called the Black Hand. Their belief was simple: tyranny can only be destroyed by violence. They read poetry about martyrdom. They glorified death. They believed assassins become heroes. To them, killing was not crime. It was purpose. Princip was sick, poor, unknown. But the mission gave him something he never had: meaning. For the first time in his life, he felt important. He wasn't just Gavrilo anymore. He was the man who would change history. This is how extremism works. First it gives you an enemy. Then it gives you a story. Finally it gives you a role. And suddenly, dying feels noble. Here's the disturbing part. Princip believed one assassination would free Bosnia. Europe would support them. People would celebrate. He never imagined global war, 20 million deaths, Entire empires collapsing. He thought he was starting a revolution. He was actually starting a catastrophe. Princip was caught immediately. He tried to swallow poison. It failed. He was too young for the death penalty, so he was sentenced to 20 years in prison, in a dark cell, chained, sick, alone. By 1918, he was a broken man. He died at age 23, of tuberculosis, while the world burned outside. Gavrilo Princip wanted to be remembered as a hero. Instead, he became a footnote in a tragedy that killed millions. But here's the real problem. He didn't create the war. He only lit the match. The fire was already waiting, and the empire that was about to explode was far more dangerous than any teenager with a gun. By 1914, Europe was not peaceful. It was quiet in the same way a volcano is quiet. Everyone knew something was coming. They just didn't know what the spark would be. The Austro-Hungarian Empire looked powerful on maps. Huge land, millions of people, one of the strongest armies in Europe. But inside, it was falling apart. More than 10 different ethnic groups speaking different languages with different religions and different loyalties. Czechs, Slovaks, Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Hungarians, Germans, all trapped under one crown. The empire had one nightmare. If one group leaves, everyone will. Nationalism was spreading like a virus. Every group wanted independence. Franz Ferdinand actually wanted reforms. He wanted to give minorities more rights. But the old elites hated that idea. They believed only fear and force could hold the empire together. So when he was killed, it wasn't just murder. It felt like a message. Your empire is weak. And weak empires do one thing when scared. They attack. Austria didn't really care about Princip. They cared about Serbia. Serbia was small, but loud, and openly supporting Slavic independence movements. To Austria, Serbia was inspiring rebellion, funding extremists, threatening the empire's survival. So the assassination became the perfect excuse. Not justice, not investigation, but punishment. Austria sent Serbia a list of demands. They were designed to be impossible, including letting Austrian police operate inside Serbia, giving up sovereignty, arresting anyone Austria named. It was basically saying, stop being a country. Serbia accepted almost everything. Almost. Austria declared war anyway, because they never wanted peace. They wanted control. Austria believed two dangerous things. The war would be short. Other countries would stay out. Both were wrong. Very wrong. Because Serbia was not alone. Serbia had a protector, Russia, and Russia had allies. And those allies had allies. And suddenly, the system designed to keep peace turned into a machine for mass death. Franz Ferdinand's death didn't cause World War I. It exposed how desperate the world already was. The gunshot didn't create the explosion. It just revealed the bomb. And once Austria fired the first shot, the world entered the most dangerous game ever created, a game called alliances. Imagine pushing one domino and watching 5 continents fall. That is exactly what happened in the summer of 1914. July 28, 1914. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Artillery begins shelling Belgrade. The first bombs fall. At this point, it's still a local conflict. 2 countries, 1 border, 1 problem. But then, Russia steps in. Russia saw itself as the protector of Slavic people. Serbia was Slavic. If Serbia fell, Russia's influence in Europe would collapse. So Russia mobilizes its army. Not an attack yet, just preparation. But in Europe, mobilization equals threat. And Germany was watching. Germany was allied with Austria and terrified of Russia. Germany had a plan called the Schlieffen Plan. If war starts, strike first. Strike fast. So when Russia mobilized, Germany declared war on Russia. Then something insane happened. Germany declared war on France too, even though France hadn't attacked anyone. Why? Because France was Russia's ally. To reach France quickly, Germany invaded Belgium. Belgium was neutral. They promised not to fight. Germany invaded anyway. And that single decision brought in Britain, because Britain had promised to protect Belgium. Now the war included Austria, Serbia, Russia, Germany, France, Britain, in less than 5 days. The scariest part? No one was actually leading this. There was no master plan, no global strategy, no villain mastermind. Just automatic treaties Rigid military plans, fear of looking weak, and leaders too proud to stop. Each country believed, if we don't act now, we'll lose everything. So they all acted, together, into disaster. By August 1914, Europe was locked. Trains were moving. Soldiers were marching. Borders were closed. Even if leaders wanted peace now, it was too late. The machines were already running. World War I was not started by hatred. It was started by systems that removed the ability to stop. Every country thought it was defending itself, and together they destroyed a generation. But here's the darkest truth. The war still could have been stopped. It just wasn't. History loves to blame villains. But sometimes, the real enemy is something simpler. Human ego. In 1914, Europe was ruled by cousins. The kings of Britain, Germany, Russia were literally family. They wrote letters to each other, called each other by nicknames. But when crisis came, they stopped communicating. Not because they couldn't talk, because they didn't trust each other. Russia's Tsar Nicholas II and Germany's Kaiser Wilhelm II exchanged messages. Both said, "We don't want war." But neither wanted to look weak. So while saying peace, they prepared for war. This created the deadliest contradiction. Diplomacy in words, mobilization in actions, and actions speak louder. Every leader believed, if I back down, my people will lose respect. If I delay, my enemies will strike first. So they chose speed over wisdom, fast decisions, no reflection, no real negotiations. Just mobilize, threaten, escalate. There was no United Nations, no international crisis system, no neutral peace mediator. Each country was both judge and jury. When conflict started, there was no emergency brake, only acceleration. This part is disturbing. In 1914, war was still seen as honorable, glorious, heroic. Young men rushed to enlist. Newspapers celebrated it. Poets wrote about dying for the nation. Nobody understood machine guns. Nobody understood trenches. Nobody understood chemical weapons. They thought war was still like medieval battles. They were wrong. There were still moments when war could have stopped. Small windows, secret meetings, diplomatic offers. But every time, someone chose pride over peace. And eventually, even the possibility of peace disappeared. World War I wasn't inevitable. It was allowed. Allowed by fear. Allowed by ego. Allowed by leaders who mistook pride for strength. So here's the final question. If the war could have been stopped, why wasn't it? History often feels inevitable, only because we already know the ending. But for the people living in 1914, the future was still open. There were at least 3 real turning points. 1. After the assassination, Austria could have investigated instead of accusing. They had no proof Serbia ordered it. They chose punishment over patience. 2. The ultimatum. Serbia accepted almost all demands. That was a diplomatic victory. Austria chose war anyway. 3. Russian mobilization. Russia could have waited. Germany could have paused. Both chose speed over dialogue. At every stage, there was a peaceful option. It was just ignored. Every leader believed, I can manage this. It won't go that far. We'll stop it if it gets dangerous. But complex systems don't work like that. Once too many moving parts exist, no single person controls the outcome. That's the terrifying truth of modern power. Let's imagine the car never took the wrong turn. Princip never fired. Franz Ferdinand lived. Would war still happen? Most historians say yes, eventually. Because the system itself was unstable. Someone else, some other crisis, some other spark. The world was already prepared to explode. The real causes were extreme nationalism, arms race, secret alliances, fear-based politics, zero-sum thinking. Princip didn't create these. He just revealed them. This is the uncomfortable part. Humans are terrible at long-term thinking, admitting weakness, de-escalation, learning from near disasters. We react. We don't reflect. And that's why history keeps repeating. Different names, different flags, same psychology. World War I wasn't a failure of intelligence. It was a failure of emotional maturity. People had the power to destroy the world, but not the wisdom to control themselves. And that leads to the most important part of this story. The part that isn't about 1914. It's about us. Every generation believes it is smarter than the previous one, more advanced, more rational, more civilized. So did Europe in 1914. In 1914, they had telephones, trains, electricity, newspapers, global trade. They believed war was outdated. They were wrong. Technology doesn't make humans wise. It just makes mistakes bigger. Look at the world now: nuclear weapons, social media, algorithmic propaganda, online radicalization, nationalism returning, political polarization, different tools, same psychology. We still divide into us versus them, glorify outrage, mistake confidence for intelligence, reward extreme voices. Just faster. If Princip lived today, he wouldn't need a gun. He'd need a viral post, a community of believers, an algorithm to amplify him, and millions would follow him. Not because he's right, but because he makes them feel important. The real enemy is blind certainty, emotional thinking, identity-based beliefs, systems without breaks. Wars don't start with hatred. They start with stories. Stories that feel meaningful, moral, necessary, until they become unstoppable. The world didn't end because one man pulled a trigger. It almost ended because millions stopped questioning. They trusted leaders. They trusted narratives. They trusted systems. They didn't think. History is not dangerous because it repeats. It's dangerous because it feels familiar. The same emotions, the same fears, the same mistakes. Different year, same humans. If this story disturbed you, good, because awareness is uncomfortable, but ignorance is lethal. ThinkBox is not here to give you answers. It's here to make sure you never stop asking questions. Not about history, about yourself. Because the next world-changing mistake will not start with a bomb. It will start with a belief.